We're trapped! Grab my hand! Hold on to the baby!
Higher ground, quickly!
The day Alama the land left Enuma the sky, the rivers held their breath, and the trees learned how to listen. That was long ago, in the first days, when the world was young and every living thing still spoke the same quiet language. In those early times, Alama and Enuma were husband and wife. They lived so close that morning rose from their shared peace and night settled wherever their silence touched. When Alama stretched her broad back, Enuma sent gentle breezes to cool her. When she tilted her face upward, he draped soft evening air to soothe her weariness. And because they lived as one, the world prospered. Rivers flowed steadily. Streams whispered calmly. Birds filled the air with songs that needed no warning of heat or storm. The people who lived upon Alama's wide body often said, "Look how the land and the sky agree. Their harmony feeds us all." And for a long time, this was true. But even in the earliest days, harmony could be fragile. Small troubles, like tiny grains of sand, could slip unnoticed into a peaceful home. At first, the quarrels between Alama the land and Enuma the sky were gentle disagreements, the kind every close pair shares. Sometimes, Enuma wished to stir the air strongly to scatter seeds far and wide, but Alama preferred a quiet wind so young shoots would not break. Sometimes, Alama longed for a cool hush to settle her soil, but Enuma lingered high and distant, lost in his own thoughts. They forgave each other often, but small misunderstandings that are not carefully tended can return again and again. As moons passed, their quarrels grew heavier. Enuma began to drift higher each day, leaving his duties to restless breezes. Alama, burdened with forests, creatures, and the steady heartbeat of the world, felt her strength thinning. She whispered her worries to the roots beneath her feet, hoping they would carry her message upward. But Enuma did not hear. Or perhaps he heard, but chose not to believe. The elders of the communities noticed the change first. The winds shifted strangely. The days felt different, bright, yet somehow unsettled. "This is the sound of a home losing its harmony," they murmured as they watched the world's quiet rhythm falter. Still, Alama endured. Still, she held life upon her back. And still, she wished Enuma would look downward and see her growing exhaustion. But one silent night, when the streams rested and even the stars dimmed their glow, something deep within Alama released a long, weary sigh, a sigh carried by roots older than story. It was the first crack, and everything that followed began from that single breath. In the days that followed Alama's deep sigh, the world began to feel the change, not loudly, not suddenly, but in small ways that only careful hearts could notice. It was as though a quiet shadow stretched itself between Alama the land and Enuma the sky, widening a little more with each passing moon. Alama worked as she always had. She held trees upright, steadied the path that people walked, and cradled the roots of every growing thing. But there was a heaviness to her now, the kind that does not shout, only settles. When the morning breeze passed over her, she did not rise as easily. When the soft winds brushed her heels, she answered with a faint tremble instead of her usual strength. Enuma the sky, high and far above, was changing too. Once he lingered close, bending low to watch the movement of rivers or to admire how Alama shaped valleys and ridges. But now, he wandered often. Sometimes he drifted so far that even the tallest trees felt lonely under him. Their disagreements grew sharper, though neither wished to wound the other. When Ayuma sent long sweeping winds, hoping to star life along Alama's surface, she found herself too tired to welcome them. "Your winds scatter more than they help," Alama whispered through her deep places. "My winds only scatter because you no longer hold firmly," Ayuma replied from above, hurt threading through his voice. What once were small quarrels now left bruises neither could name. The people who lived on Alama's body noticed these things too. Hunters paused to sense the uneasy stillness in the air. Farmers stood quietly at the edge of their fields, wondering why the ground did not feel as lively beneath their feet. Children asked their elders, "Why does the world feel different?" And the elders answered, "Alama and Ayuma are no longer walking in the same rhythm." The elders gathered often. They sat in a circle, their backs straight, their palms pressed to the earth, as if hoping Alama would speak directly to them. "Her strength is fading," one elder murmured. "And the sky grows proud and distant," another added. "We must help them find their harmony again," the oldest concluded, though uncertainty wavered in his eyes. Meanwhile, Alama felt her patience slipping like old clay. She had carried her burdens quietly for many moons, waiting for Ayuma to notice her weariness. But Ayuma was drifting farther, wrapped in thoughts she could no longer read. One twilight, in a voice softer than a falling leaf, Alama whispered upward, "I cannot continue like this." The wind carried her words high. Whether Ayuma heard them clearly or not, the silence that followed was its own answer. The elders did not sleep the night Alama whispered her weary truth to the heavens. Their hearts felt the tremor that moved through the ground, a small shaking that carried sadness more than anger. By dawn, they sent word across the communities. "Come, we must speak. The world is shifting." A great gathering was called in the open clearing where Alama's wide body rose gently, forming a natural circle. The people came with quiet footsteps. Hunters, farmers, mothers, children all stood upon Alama's back with respect. Above, Enumabi's sky hovered high, distant but watchful, his silence spreading like a large empty cloth. The oldest elder stepped forward. His voice cracked, but not from age, from worry. "Alama the land," he said gently, pressing his palm to the earth. "You have held us since the beginning. Tell us your heart." For a moment, the clearing fell still. Then a deep hum moved through the soil. Alama's voice. "I am tired," she said, her tone soft but firm. "I have carried the weight of our world without rest. I have whispered my struggles, yet they scattered like dust. I am weary of trying alone." The people bowed their heads. Even the stones seemed to lean closer, listening. Then the elder looked upward. His voice cracked, but not from age, from worry. "Enuma, the sky, come closer, hear her words." For the first time in many moons, Enuma descended. Not enough to touch her, but close enough for the people to feel his presence, cool, vast, troubled. "I have heard her," he said, his voice echoing through the space above them. "And I too have carried burdens. I too have felt unseen. I have watched her ground shift without calling my name." Alama's reply rose from beneath their feet. "I called, you drifted." Enuma's winds stirred sharply, though he held them back. "And when I returned, You closed yourself. What else was I to do? I am filled to my roots, Enuma. I cannot give more. The elder stepped in, pleading, reasoning, trying to bind their words together like woven raffia. Think of the days you shared. Think of the peace the world knew when you were one. But sometimes, even ancient bonds can fray beyond the reach of wise hands. At last, Alama spoke with steadiness that broke many hearts. I choose to part from you, Enuma. I seek peace even if it stands far from where we once stood together. A long silence stretched across the gathering. Then, Enuma lifted himself slowly, rising higher, higher, until he no longer cast shadows upon the clearing. If that is your desire, he said, his voice tight with hurt, then I will leave this place. And so he ascended into the far heavens, withdrawing from Alama's side. The people felt the emptiness he left behind. Alama felt it most of all. But she did not call him back. The parting had begun, and the world would never be the same again. When Enuma the sky rose into the far heavens, he did not look back. But that did not mean he felt nothing. His silence was thick, and his wide, endless body trembled with emotions he could not name. Up in the high places, where only winds and wandering spirits dared to roam, Enuma folded himself into the vastness. He had always been large, wider than memory, deeper than any riverbed. Yet now he felt strangely small. Hurt has a way of shrinking even the greatest of beings. He drifted alone for many moons. He watched the world below from a distance, where Alama's shape curved gently across the horizon. Even from far above, he could see the quiet strength in her, the way she held forests, steadied mountains, and carried the weight of all living things without bending. But it was that very strength that pained him. She has chosen a world without me, Enuma murmured to the emptiness, though the emptiness did not answer. She has chosen peace without my presence. His pride flickered inside him, sharp and restless. For ages, he and Alama had moved as one. Now she had sent him away with words that cut deeper than any blade. The more he replayed her final declaration, the more bitterness settled into him like dust gathering in a forgotten corner. I will not be the one who mourns alone, he whispered. As the moons passed, Enuma's sorrow hardened into resolve. If Alama wished to stand apart from him, then he would make her feel the weight of that decision. Not merely through distance, no. Distance was too gentle, but with something that would touch her deeply, reach her roots, and shake her calm. He began to craft plans, shaping them slowly, carefully, in the quiet stretches of his solitude. 2 forces, 2 trials, each powerful in its own way, each capable of bending even the firmest ground. Enuma shaped the first in his mind, a trial that would tighten Alama's breath and test her patience. Then he formed the second, a trial that would overwhelm even her oldest roots. He did not release these forces yet. No, he held them close, waiting until his heart grew still enough to act, and his pride grew strong enough to ignore the pain still buried within him. Far below, Alama worked and endured, unaware of what Enuma was preparing. But the world could sense a shift gathering in the high heavens, a change, not yet named, but already on its way. Many moons after the great parting, Enuma the sky rose from his loneliness with a heart hardened by hurt. What had once been a gentle sorrow had reshaped itself into something sharper. A quiet resolve to make Alama the land feel the weight of sending him away. And so, he released the first trial he had shaped in the hidden folds of the heavens. This time, he did not hide the force he chose. He summoned the sun, calling it closer, brighter, fiercer than it had ever dared to shine before. At first, it seemed like an ordinary bright day, nothing unusual. But as the moon stretched on, the people and creatures of the world realized something terrible was beginning. The sun grew harsher. Its heat fell heavily upon Alama's back, pressing down with a weight that was almost physical. The once gentle warmth that had blessed early mornings now burned with an intensity no one had known. Day after day, its brightness blazed stronger, as if it were determined to pierce even the deepest roots of the earth. Alama felt it immediately. The moisture she treasured deep within her soil began to rise and scatter, stolen away by the harsh brightness from above. Her streams thinned, whispering weakly as they tried to retreat into the hidden places of her body. Her plains hardened, her valleys tightened. The ground beneath her surface began to crack, long, dry lines spreading like old scars. "What is this brightness?" Alama groaned, her voice trembling beneath forests and fields. "Enuma, what have you done?" But Enuma did not answer. He watched from the high heavens as the sun scorched everything below. A part of him quivered at the sight of Alama's pain, but he pushed that softness deep inside himself and refused to let it rise. As the heat intensified, life on Alama's back began to change. Hunters walked carefully, for the ground beneath them split open with sharp, sudden cracks. Mothers shaded their children, though shade no longer offered comfort. Farmers pressed their palms to the soil, only to pull back quickly, startled by how hot it had become. "The world is burning," the elders whispered with fear. "Enuma has drawn the sun too close. Alama is weary." Still, Alama endured. Still, she held her trees upright, though many began to droop. Still, she cradled her creatures, though they panted and sought shelter wherever they could. But each moon drained more strength from her. Her rivers receded into thin, fragile lines. Her grasses curled and shriveled. Her rocky places cracked open, revealing dry, wounded earth beneath. Finally, after countless moons of relentless brightness, Alama cried out with a voice that shook even the stones on her surface. "Enuma, please, enough! I am drying, I am cracking, I am breaking. Do not burn the world upon my back."
When Alama the land cried out beneath the fierce brightness, her voice rose through the trembling air, carrying exhaustion, pain, and the breaking of her once steady strength. The cracks that ran across her body echoed her plea, sending it upward like a sorrowful drumbeat. In the high heavens, Enuma the sky heard every word. For the first time since the parting, his vast body faltered. The winds that suckled him slowed. The quiet dignity he wrapped himself in wavered. He had wanted her to feel his absence, to understand the hurt of being cast away, but he had not expected her suffering to cut this deeply through the world. For a moment, he considered softening. For a moment, he imagined drifting lower, offering comfort, forgetting the quarrels and the pride that had pulled them apart. But that moment passed. Pride is a stubborn spirit. Once it settles in a heart, it whispers sharply, drowning out softer voices. If she cries now, is it not only because she wants relief? Would she change her mind, or is she simply begging for ease before casting me aside again? doubt mixed with hurt, and hurt mixed with anger. All the confusion swirling inside him hardened once more. "No," he said, steadying himself. "She chose to part from me. Let her taste the full shape of life without my guidance." And so he turned away from the sun he had summoned, allowing its fierce brightness to begin easing slightly. But he did not answer Alama's plea, not yet. Instead, he began shaping the second trial. This one would be nothing like the first. Where the first had taken moisture away, the second would bring more than Alama could bear. Where the first had cracked her ground, the second would drench her to her roots. Where the first had left her gasping for coolness, the second would drown her in abundance. Enuma gathered the hidden forces of the heavens, the heavy mists, the darkening vapors, the thick clouds that slept in distant, forgotten spaces. Slowly, he pulled them toward himself, weaving them together, preparing them. "Let her ask for balance," he said quietly. "Let her learn the truth of extremes." Far below, Alama tried to rest her wounded body, unaware of the weight building in the heavens above her. A new silence spread across the world, the kind that comes before something powerful changes everything.
When the fierce brightness finally loosened its grip on the world, the people believed relief had come at last. They stepped outside their shelters, blinking at the gentler light. They touched the ground and whispered thanks, hoping Alama would soon heal from her cracks and dryness. But Alama the land knew better. She felt a different weight gathering above her, a heavy stillness pressing upon her hills and valleys. Her creatures sensed it too. Birds grew quiet. Trees held their branches stiff and alert. Even the winds, usually restless, seemed to wait. Far above, Enuma, the sky, released the second trial. It began with a single drop, just one. Thick, cold, and heavy, striking the earth with a sound that echoed through Alama's deepest places. Then came another, and another, and another. Very quickly, the heavens opened. Rain fell with a force the world had never known. It poured as though Enuma had torn open the great water gates of the sky. Every drop carried the weight of his hurt, his confusion, and the anger he could not speak aloud. Alama gasped as the first wave struck her. The rain did not dance gently as it once had in ages past. It hammered, it soaked, it drowned. Where cracks had once split her dry skin, water now rushed in, filling every line, every hollow, every secret place beneath the soil. Her rivers, once thin and quiet, swelled rapidly. Streams overflowed their beds and spilled across fields. Paths that people walked became muddy whirlpools of churning water. "Enuma, please," Elama cried upward. "You have brought too much. I cannot hold all this." But Enuma did not answer. He had turned his face away, lost in a storm of his own making. The rain thickened. Clouds gathered deeper and darker, pressing down as if they wanted to merge with the earth itself. Thunder rolled softly, not in anger, but in the heavy sorrow of a sky that did not know how to heal. The people scrambled for safety. Hunters climbed onto high rocks. Farmers dragged their tools into shelters. Mothers placed their children on raised platforms carved into Elama's ridges. Fishermen abandoned their canoes as the waters rose too violently to control. And still, the water kept falling. Elama felt her body swelling with the weight. Her forests sagged, her fields drowned. Her hidden caves filled until no space remained to breathe. She cried again, her voice trembling through every soaked root and stone. "Enuma, enough!
I am drowning. I asked for mercy, not this." And for a long moment, the rain continued without pause. Until, somewhere in the heavens, Enuma finally hesitated. The sound of Elama's suffering reached a place within him untouched by pride. But the rain had already done its work. The second trial had reshaped the world.
For many moons, Alama the land lay soaked and trembling beneath the weight of Enuma's endless rain. Her rivers had burst their boundaries, her fields sagged beneath churning waters. Even her strongest trees clung desperately to their sinking roots. But at last, slowly, cautiously, the rain began to soften. The pounding drops thinned into steady falls. Steady falls gave way to gentle showers, and the gentle showers faded into mist. Then, in the quiet that followed, the world listened. Alama exhaled a long, weary breath. The sound rolled through her soaked valleys and hummed beneath her hills. She still held water in every hollow of her body, but at least she could breathe again. Above, Enuma the sky lingered with uncertainty. He had heard her cries. He had felt the tremor of her pain. And for the first time since their parting, his pride loosened its grip on his heart. "What have I done?" Enuma whispered to the empty heavens around him. "I wish to teach her a lesson, but I have wounded her instead." His voice drifted downward like a fragile ribbon of wind. Alama heard it, but she was too tired to answer, too weary to argue, too exhausted from holding both fire and flood within a single lifetime. She only lay there, soaked and cracked at once, waiting for the world to settle. The people began to emerge from their shelters. They stepped carefully across her damp surface, guiding their children, steadying their elders. They knew Alama had endured more than any land showed. They pressed their palms to her ground, whispering words of thanks and comfort. "We see your suffering," they murmured. "We walk gently upon your back. We will help you heal." Alama felt their gratitude like warm cloth laid across an aching wound. Enuma drifted lower, though not too close. Soft breezes moved across the world, breezes that tried to soothe, not command. For the first time in many moons, he did not come as a force, but as a presence. "I did not wish to lose you," he admitted softly. "And I did not wish to break," Alama replied, her voice faint but steady. Neither spoke of return, neither mentioned union, but something shifted, a small, fragile understanding that rose between them like a tiny sprout after a storm. It was not the harmony of old, not the closeness they once shared. It was something simpler, something humbler, a quiet agreement that neither extreme, neither fierce brightness nor drowning flood could ever bring peace to the world. And so, from that day onward, Enuma kept his distance, but not his coldness. He learned to send warmth in measured seasons and water in gentle cycles. Alama learned to receive, to breathe, and to rest between his gifts. A rhythm emerged, a pattern, a balance. And though they would never again be husband and wife, they became something new. Two ancient forces learning, slowly and painfully, how to share the world without breaking it. When the world finally grew quiet again, and both Alama the land and Enuma the sky settled into their new rhythm, the people gathered beneath the soft evening air to tell the story of what had happened. They spoke of how Alama had cracked beneath the fierce brightness. They spoke of how she had drowned beneath the unending waters. They spoke of how both trials had pushed the world to its trembling edge. And slowly they understood. The extreme heat Enuma once sent in anger did not disappear from the world. It softened, yes, but it remained, returning in measured moons, warming Alama's body, thinning her rivers, tightening her soil.
The people came to call this time the dry season, a reminder of Enuma's first trial. And the heavy rain he once used to drown her roots did not vanish either. It returned in gentler moons, filling her streams, blessing her fields, lingering long enough to teach patience. This they called the rainy season, born from Enuma's second trial. So the world learned balance, not from peace, not from ease, but from the wounds left behind by two ancient beings learning how to live apart. Generations later, the elders still tell the story. That is why the seasons change. That is why heat and water take turns. Because long ago, Alama the land and Enuma the sky loved, quarreled, parted, and learned.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more.